like the biological basis of it. It's very interesting. That literature was great because it does definitely show that there's a reset point at puberty, and there's an argument for that. But the other argument I saw about the school times is basically that these schedules are based on an agrarian system where people get up very early, go to school, and then this is an antiquated system. And in fact, I think that argument has really nothing to do with anything. There's no evidence that suggests that it's
Does the data show that the biological clock thing, does that say that they have to have 9 hours of sleep, or does it say that they go with wherever the sun goes as far as timing and that they have to go
circadian rhythm type of thing? Actually, it's both. So they need 9.25 hours of sleep a night, but they also the set point is later in the night, so they're not gonna. There's a reason they're up late at night because they're shifted.
Right.
They're not tired, and so when they get up at 6 or 5 to go to school,
but bedtime's habitual. You can adjust to that.
The funny thing is, none of these studies address napping.
Oh.
So you come home and go to sleep for 2 hours and get all the sleep they needed. It was not linear.
Right.
So, but anyway, I was very picky about that.
And I think too, if we start talking about what we think is the best sleep time for teenagers, we would have to reconsider some athletic teams where we practice hockey at 11 o'clock at night.
Right.
Because that's when ice time is cheaper. Or we have a swim team that practices at 4 in the morning because it's the only time they can get the pool at the vocational school. So we can't, I don't think, put a policy in that really has these guidelines that we believe sleep in hours and then send a segment of the kids off. Complete contradiction.
Yeah, no, I don't see there's no necessity to do this. This is just experimental to see if we can improve, overall performance of teenagers and give them a good start. Unfortunately, I think that's life argument weighs out.
Oh, I like that. That's like, suck it
July
up.
I sounded that.
This is the last time I'm going to see this on the agenda for
I
a
think
couple
so.
years.
I think so.
Yeah.
Good.
2 years reset time.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Thank you.
Go for it. There's a lot of work that the policy subcommittee has to do, and take this one off your agenda.
All right.
All right.
Victor next.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the school committee FY11 budget goals. We have not. Because the committee has recommended a continuation of the activities under its regular goals, and those really drive our budget goals. There is not much to change. These are last year's goals. Go ahead.
The only thing I want to mention here is I think this was at our goals workshop where you talked about inviting somebody in to present on the Education Foundation.
I
would like to.
have
Okay,
for that.
I'd like to move forward on that aggressively.
I did speak to John Murphy, who's the town moderator, also works at Reading Co-op, and asked if he would meet with me and invite the woman whose name I can't remember, Paula Neville, who was instrumental in the program that we put in place in the Hood School, but has also been involved. I think it was Everett or Revere called it. It's late, guys. I'm sorry.
It's one of those
my
cities.
clock has not
You're
reset.
very close
around it.
Very, very close.
I'm trying. One of those inner city schools, and was successful in setting up an education foundation.
Okay, great.
So we'll meet with David as well, the 4 of us, and we will put together an idea or a plan, and we'll bring it to the committee.
Okay.
And we should get that moving.
I'd like to add a goal.
Oh, all right.
The goal I'd like to add, and I'm not exactly sure where it fits in here, is that we eliminate all the fees that kids pay, that parents of kids pay, for sports and activities and field trips. That all of those items, which are looked on as like a revenue source, be eliminated and paid for within the school budget as public school, we should be doing that. And I think that it's time for us to move in that direction and not continually increase fees, but reduce fees. We see these programs, like the adventure program that was last week for incoming sixth graders. And some of the feedback that I've gotten from that was that there were perhaps 10 dozen kids that didn't go on that program. Even though there was a funding source for those who couldn't afford it, they didn't go not because they didn't want to, but because they couldn't afford to as a family, and that their families were too proud to ask. And we should not be charging kids for something that is a part of the education, the public education. And that program is a very useful program from my observation. It's a way of bringing kids from different schools together and building a new team in middle school. That's just one example of that. We have the recurring problem of the trip to Washington or the trip to France or the trip to Mexico or wherever. If those are part of the program and that they have educational value and we're approving them, we should sponsor them. And I'd like to put that in as a goal.
I agree with you on activities and sports. I don't on field trips. I think by putting field trips in, and if we ever had to fund those out of the school district, then we'd eliminate all the field trips we do because the money would never be available. So you'd wipe out Washington, you'd wipe out Project Adventure. Maybe we can take them, into see the State House or something. But so I don't support field trips in that. I think field trips need to be outside the parameters of that.
Project Adventure cost about $120 or something like that.
Right.
$125 per student.
Right.
We pay about $9,000 per student to educate them.
Yeah.
It's a small percentage for a very valuable piece of education.
Right, but it's 25,000 that's not in the budget right now. It's not accounted for. So you've got to cut 25,000 somewhere else.
I understand that that in the instant case you're looking at $25,000, or where we're going to come up with $25,000.
Right.
But our budget for the year is $23 million.
No, I understand.
So that 25,000 is small by comparison to the total, as it is small as compared with what we pay to educate the kid. And we shouldn't be looking to having 10 or a dozen families who deprive their kid of that adventure because they can't afford it and won't and have too much pride to ask. And that is a part of public education. That's something that we should be sponsoring. And we've seen some of this on the listserv. It's gone around in other communities as well. And we should be sponsoring these trips if they are of sufficient educational value to have the kids go on them.
I think if we make it a goal, we're not committed to implementing that goal in the next budget year, but it puts it in a step forward for more discussion.
I just don't agree with field trips. I won't support it because I don't agree with field